Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're going to be unpacking a really specific, totally reimagined approach to real estate transactions that's mapped out in our source material. We're looking at a structured offer that honestly completely rethinks the nuts and bolts of buying and selling a home. So we're going to meticulously break down exactly how this model works, who it actually benefits, and why the language used in this brief document is just so incredibly powerful. Get ready, because this is basically a masterclass in transaction design.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Getting your full asking price and a smooth 45-day close. If you've ever bought or sold property, you know that sounds literally like the ultimate real estate dream scenario, right? Usually, compromise is the name of the game. You might get your target price, but you're waiting months to close. Or, you close super fast, but you take a massive haircut on the actual value. But our source text today, it presents a model claiming to deliver both of those things simultaneously. Full asking price. 45 days. It sounds almost impossible, which is exactly why we need to dissect the structural engine that actually makes this bold claim a reality.
Section 1. The core financing mechanism. Let's look at the structural engine that makes this whole offer possible.
We provide homebuyers. Look at that bold, three-word declarative statement. It really anchors the entire text. It doesn't say, "we'll help you find," or "we might connect you with." No, it states an absolute. We provide them. It immediately establishes this sense of certainty and highlights the exact service being offered here. It literally takes the whole burden of the search completely off the seller's shoulders.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the text actually defines temporary seller financing. Because, you might expect a bunch of complex banking jargon filled with interest rates and amortization schedules, but no. The source material strictly defines this financing as a matchmaking tool. It's the bridge. The financing itself isn't even the focal point. It's simply the method used to connect the right people with the right property. It totally frames a financial instrument as a purely functional matching mechanism.
Section 2. Matching qualified buyers. Let's move to the next step and see how this builds on the buyer's side of the equation.
Homes that fit their needs. See, this transaction relies entirely on precision. It's kind of like a highly curated matching algorithm. This model doesn't work by just grabbing any random buyer off the street. It explicitly states the goal is matching buyers with homes that fit their exact requirements. The efficiency of this whole shebang really rests on that precise fit, because if the home doesn't fit the buyer's needs perfectly, the match isn't made, and that rapid timeline we talked about earlier, it just can't happen.
So the crucial point is this. For the engine to actually run, two mandatory conditions absolutely have to be met. First, you need qualified buyers, meaning they have the actual financial capacity to cross the finish line. And second, perfectly matched homes. Our source text makes it crystal clear that temporary seller financing is deployed specifically to unite these two traits. Basically, without a qualified buyer or without a perfectly matched home, the whole engine just stalls out.
Section 3. The seller advantage. Now, let's pivot and look at the ultimate payoff for the seller.
And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer elegance of the model. On one side of the transaction balance, you have a buyer whose highly specific personal housing needs are completely fulfilled. And sitting perfectly opposite that, you have the seller reaping these incredibly lucrative benefits. It's a total win-win relationship engineered by the financing method. The buyer gets the exact home they need, and because that perfect match is locked in, the seller unlocks their ultimate, uncompromised outcome. If we map out the implied real estate journey from the text, it flows so logically. Step 1, you match those qualified buyers. Step 2, you utilize temporary seller financing as the mechanism to bind that match together. And step 3, because the match is spot on and the financing is secured, you achieve that smooth 45-day closing. It's literally a straight line right to the finish. The text presents this not as some wishful thinking, but as a systematic, step-by-step progression.
45. Let's just let that number sit there for a second. In the context of property transactions, 45 days is incredibly rapid. Notice how the text doesn't give a range. It doesn't say, 30 to 90 days. It commits to a very specific, highly accelerated data point. And that speed is the direct result of the precise matchmaking and tailored financing we've been unpacking.
But it's not just about the speed. Focus heavily on the word modifying that timeline, smooth. A smooth 45-day closing. This is such a crucial promise. Fast closings in traditional real estate are usually super chaotic, stressful, and just packed with last-minute hurdles. But by guaranteeing a smooth experience, the text is assuring the seller that this speed comes from pure efficiency and preparation, that pre-qualification and matching from earlier, rather than just some rushed, disorganized scramble.
And here is the absolute peak of the seller's advantage. You get your full asking price. Think about how rare that is. This represents a completely zero-compromise financial outcome. Usually in a negotiation, somebody has to give ground. But the whole premise here is that because the mechanism brings a highly qualified buyer to a home that perfectly fits what they need, the seller doesn't have to negotiate down at all. The value is preserved entirely.
So, what does this all mean for us? We've seen how providing matched buyers, utilizing targeted financing, and guaranteeing price and speed combine to form this incredibly efficient system. It strips away all that usual real estate uncertainty and replaces it with a structured win-win transaction. Which leaves us with a pretty provocative question. With this level of pure efficiency, is temporary seller financing the ultimate future of matching homes with buyers? Does this ultra-concise, precision-based model represent the eventual standard for how we'll all buy and sell property? It's definitely a fascinating concept to consider. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the systems around you.